But thank you so much for the introduction. I'm so excited to get to participate as a speaker in Elevate this year. I have attended some of these virtual events previously and have found them to be really effective at just finding community, feeling validated, seeing other folks like myself. So being able to speak to this community and speak about something that's really, really near and dear to my heart, to my experiences, and something that I hope resonates with a lot of folks who are listening is such a joy. I'm so pumped to be here. So as Amanda had mentioned, oh, I see reactions. I love that. You never quite know with different virtual conferences how you'll be able to react with the audience. So it's fun when folks react with emojis or in the chat or anything. So send them my way. I see you. I feel it. I feel the love. I'm excited to be here. Awesome. Like Amanda mentioned, my name is Brittany. I am currently a product manager at a startup called Sakota. We work in the data and AI space. Previously, I've been a solutions engineer for several years. Prior to that, I was a software engineer. So I've played in a lot of different technical roles over my career so far. And I want to speak to that experience with everyone here. I've really learned how rewarding these technical roles can be. I've seen how all of my skill sets, both those that have been purely learned and those that come really naturally, have all come together to build a career that's been very impactful, very rewarding. I feel like we don't often put the words technical and like impact or positive impact or even nurturing together. And that's something that's always kind of bothered me because I think that in the roles that I've had the opportunity to explore as a solutions engineer, a software engineer, as a product manager, I've actually felt that I've made really positive impact. I've made really good connections. I've been able to be nurturing and kind and warm in a way that really fits my personality. And I want to speak to those experiences today. I want to share all of that positivity I've felt to encourage more women to go for it if you're thinking about it, or provide validation, or just share what that experience is like. But I would be lying. I see we have some other startup folks here too, which is awesome. I'd be lying if I said that these experiences being technical, especially at a startup, have been all rainbows and sunshine. I love what I can do with my skill sets. I love being able to talk to customers, to build for people, to work with teams. I love all that. But it hasn't been the easiest. It's not as easy as just telling someone, well, just go for it. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about my experiences of how I've gotten myself to where I am today, even when it's been difficult, when I may not fit the stereotype. And the reason I want to talk about that today is because in my heart of hearts, without a doubt, I believe that being technical is not innate. It's not something you're just born with. You don't just have the skill set to code or not have the skill set to code. It is a skill set like anything else, like learning to ride a bike or learning to type. And of course, it's going to come easier to some folks than others. That's without a doubt. All skill sets, we bias for some over others. But for whatever reason, I feel like we've gotten into this kind of understanding of technical skills that, well, if it doesn't come easy for you, it's not for you. And yet with something like riding a bike or learning to type, if only the people who riding a bike came naturally to actually continue to ride a bike, our streets would look very different. I don't know where everyone is joining from, but I'm in Toronto. We have a pretty busy biking culture. And if only the people that were good at riding bikes or it came naturally to rode bikes, again, it would just look so different. And so that's why I think it's really important to remind ourselves that technical skills are just a skill set and they don't need to come super naturally to someone for you to pursue that as a career, for you to find joy in it, for you to make an impact or be good at that work. And that's really, really, really important to me. So why is it so hard? Considering it's just a skill set, why does it still feel so hard sometimes to be someone who doesn't fit the archetype of a software engineer working as a technical role? My goal in this talk today is to answer this question in the form of storytelling. I want to share stories around the affirmations that I've told myself over and over and over again so that I don't leave this industry entirely. Again, I'd be lying if I said I never thought of it. I'm sure if you're in a similar position, if you're new to this industry, I'm sure a lot of us can relate to that feeling of just feeling no one really talks like me, sounds like me, works like me, and I feel uncomfortable and I don't like it. And that is a totally valid feeling. But I wanted to stick around. And so this is how I have gotten to where I am today to try and stick around and how I'm still figuring it out because I'm sure we all are. Before I get into the stories, I want to make sure that it's clear what I want everyone leaving this talk with. And that is an unquestionable conviction that you belong in tech. Your skills are needed, all of them, technical and otherwise, especially the otherwise. But most importantly, there is no one way to be a technical person. Once again, there is absolutely no one way to be a technical person. And that is what I want you to leave with today. So, who am I? Why is this important to me? So on and so forth. Well, like so many young women, I was not introduced to anything computers, engineering, anything like that. I was bright when I was young. I excelled at school, math, science, really loved it, but no one really pushed me into that computer science or engineering place. I always wonder why, because my grandpa was an engineer, and as much as I wonder, I kind of know, you don't make the connection of young girl and engineer. And so I was never pushed in that direction. So for whoever's asking, I'm not sharing slides. I'm just sharing storytelling and open to questions at the end and can share resources at the end as well. But great question. And we do have some great discussion happening in the chat as well, which I love. Lots of facts. So yeah, so my story is that I did not get pushed into anything engineering. I ended up going to school for biology and psychology. As part of the first year requirements, I was required to take a computers course, and I had the option of taking a bird course. I don't know if that's common language, but at my university, a bird course is like a really easy course, just like an intro to Microsoft Word, or a more intensive course, Intro to Computer Science. So I could fulfill that requirement with either one. Of course, I was going to take the bird course, but then I had a professor who gave me a little bit of advice, my first kind of foray into mentorship. And he said that a lot of psychology labs are starting to do experiments on a digital interface, and they lack the skill sets to be able to actually code out these interfaces. And so it is there's a gap in the industry, and learning how to code would actually be really effective in building my career in psychology. So based on this professor's mentorship, I took the Intro to Comp Sci course. For anyone who's taken a course like that, it is not easy. It was so hard, and I absolutely loved it. It didn't come naturally to me, but there was something so special about building something from nothing, figuring out a bug, understanding logical thinking, computational thinking. It scratched an itch in my brain that I hadn't really felt since I was a kid. When I was a kid, my mom would give me like Sudoku puzzles, and I loved them. I'd force my family to play a lot of word games, and it was that same itch that was being scratched when I took this intro course. I was really excited to explore this new skill set. Over the summer, that same professor that nudged me in the direction of that course actually set me up in a psychology lab where I could code and build out these experiments. So I was immediately using this skill set. I was super excited about it, and I signed up for the second year course as an elective to try and explore a minor in computer science. September came around. I did my internship. I'm feeling great about it. I'm excited to explore this new skill set. And I sit in the course, and I remember looking around, and it felt different. Definitely the course was less diverse, but okay, I could handle that. But then the professor started talking, and the professor made it very clear within the first half hour in the course that if you were not able to or not excited about dedicating 20 to 30 hours a week to coding every single week, that you were not going to succeed in this course. Now, this was an exploration of a minor. This is an elective. I was taking. I had my major, which was psychology and biology. I was involved in a ton of extracurriculars. I was involved in this campus musical. I ran a mental health club. And I also loved the social aspect of university, of being at school. I had great friends, great roommates. I went to the occasional party. And there was just no world, no matter how much I loved it, there was no world that I would be dedicating 20 to 30 hours a week to coding. That's just not me. It's still not me to this day. And so I dropped the course and I didn't touch computer science for 5 years. I finished my psych degree, I got a job, and I did not touch a computer science textbook or anything of the like for 5 years. Sometimes I think about where my skill sets would have been if I actually had continued coding for those 5 years. Um, and I get a bit bummed. And then I kind of reframe it and I remember what I did learn in those 5 years. I dove deep into the troves of human behavior in those psychology courses. I learned how people think and how the brain works. I danced a lot. I made a great group of friends from all walks of life. I learned how to connect with people. I started to build a network, a community. I found mentors and learned how to build mentorship relationships. This led to me getting a sales job, which I absolutely hated, but it was at a tech startup and it allowed me to understand the inner workings of startups and tech. And after that, when I was motivated to go back to school for a computer science degree 5 years later, I had the community and self worth to know that I belong, even if I didn't look like it, even if I didn't look the part. All that to say, I eventually did gain those skills. I went back to school for computer science and it wasn't easy. It was a lot of fun, but it wasn't easy. I really needed to feel that self worth to know that I could do it. And I didn't have that 5 years ago. I didn't have the ability to hear that professor say, you need to be coding 30 hours a week and recognize, well, I can still do it even if I don't do it your way. But when I went back, I did have that self-worth and I had the community that was able to tell me, you're not dropping out this time. You've got this. I had many moments where I needed that community. A professor once thought after class, I came up to a professor to ask a question and he said, "Oh, I'm just cleaning up," thinking I was there for the next class. Uh, there was a group of professors who on the first day just assumed everyone knew what an IDE was, an integrated development environment, essentially a text editor that you write your code in. I had no idea what that was on my first day, and I felt so in over my head. I had to take a calculus course that I failed so badly. It was almost as if I was trying to fail it. There were all of these moments that made me feel like I couldn't be there. But because I had taken the time to build community and learn how to believe in myself, I was able to finally tackle those skills. Eventually, I was able to get hired as a software engineer, not because of my software skills, actually. It was because of the community that I had built, the network that I had built. And when I was in that role, I remember so clearly feeling so overwhelmed by a code base, looking at a code base for the first time and going, how do I even know where to start? And it was my reliance on those other skills that I had learned, the ability to articulate questions, the ability to be resourceful, to find guidance and mentorship from others, and to really learn that allowed me to eventually make sense of that code base. I couldn't tell you that there was a moment where things switched, but I do remember suddenly realizing, oh my, I actually know where to start. Like a code base is still very overwhelming, but I can use my own skill sets and resourcefulness to figure out where to start. And while coding got easier and the technical skills got easier, I still felt othered. There were still a lot of moments where I felt like I didn't belong. And I've realized in doing research that this is such, in talking to my peers and doing research, that this is such a common feeling. And it's why so many women leave technical roles. In the last 40 years, we've developed this software character, the whiz kid, the person who the person who starts coding person, the man, the boy who starts coding at 12 years old, builds his own computers, his own computer games, stays up all night coding, gets into a program more as a formality, does hackathons, which side note, as someone who really values sleep, hackathons are not for me at all. And I would wonder, like, if I did do a computer science degree at 18, would I have survived hackathons? Like, what would that have been like for me? But this whiz kid, we've all seen it. We've all seen the archetype. And maybe we relate to bits of it, and that's totally cool. And maybe we relate to no part of it, and that's totally cool too. But the reality of the whiz kid is that it's entirely socially constructed. There is no biological predisposition that means that that whiz kid is going to be any better or worse at this career um, than anyone else. And when I was looking into the history of this, I realized that, in the 60s, when programming was first a career, it was considered clerical work. It was considered women's work. I'm mindful of time, so I'm not going to go into all the history of it, but I want everyone to take a moment to look up Ada Lovelace and Grace Hopper and Dame Stephanie Shirley and how they looked at coding as truly women's work. And maybe that analogy is outdated today, to call something women's work. But it's just so fascinating to me how, in the 60s, it was considered women's work. And then it shifted to being so heavily men's work. And the reality is, it's just person work. It's just work. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. Over the years, I have seen that being a traditional software engineer doesn't quite allow me to explore those other skill sets that I've built. And while I wish that it did, while I wish that it was easier to be a software engineer and see the value of communication and teamwork, I do feel like that WizKid archetype is still a bit in the way of that. And so, in order to be able to really take advantage of all my skill sets, I have found myself moving into the direction of solutions and product work, but still very heavily leaning on my ability to be technical, my ability to make sense of things, my ability to use analogies to make technical things make sense, not just to me, not just to customers, to my coworkers, to other people I'm talking to. And I really love that I can do that, but I do think that there's still a lot of chipping away that we can do. And so what I want to leave everyone with is that this is a work in progress. Oh, I sound like an engineering leader. That is so kind. I think there's still a lot to be done so that we can all enjoy all parts of technical careers without feeling like we're othered. But I do think that there are clear ways that you can be a technical leader with all of those skills already, especially in the world of solutions and product management. And if you find the right leadership and manager for you. But you know what? It is hard out there. And I want to end. I've kind of been all over the place. I had a script and then I just started babbling, but I do care so deeply about this. And I hope it's very clear that I do. And so I want to end with this. For all technical folks out there, whether you're already doing work in a technical form or not, whether you want to, whether you're interested in it, whether Sudoku puzzles itch your brain the way it itches mine, I can't convince you that you belong in tech. I'm sure we've heard it all, right? You've heard it from me today. Tech needs soft skills. Diversity is good for revenue, et cetera, et cetera. But if you've been in this industry, I'm sure you've also felt it all. You felt unseen, unheard, not good enough, behind. I feel that a lot. So no, I can't convince you. I can't convince you that you belong, but I can hopefully provide you the stories of how I convinced myself and continue to convince myself, sometimes daily. I belong here because this is where I want to be. That's the tweet. And as long as you want to be here, you belong here too. And that is the conviction that I want you to walk away from. It may not be easy, but you do belong. And together as a community, we can make it easier. We have just about a minute left. Thank you so much for all the positive feedback in the chat. It means so much to me to be able to share my story, a story that I thought would take 10 minutes. And here we're at 20 minutes later. It's both heartbreaking and so validating to see so many folks relate to my story. But I think it's through this community that we continue to change the story and make it a lot less heartbreaking that we feel behind and feel imposter syndrome, and a lot more rewarding and build really, really good technical careers. So thank you so much. If you want to connect with me, my name is Brittany Danishevsky. You can find me on LinkedIn, send me a message. Always happy to connect and really, really excited for the opportunity to be able to chat with all of you. Thank you.